Don Shanahan of
Hmm.
I'm just going to start bulleting them out. Every movie has a lesson.
Hmm.
Film Obsessive, 25YL, Cinephile Hissy Fit podcast. Anything else that you're up to lately?
No, I can help you fold one. Film Obsessive is flying in its own way from 25 well. So if you just did every movie, Film Obsessive and Cinephile Hissy you'd be done at three.
Hey,
That'll help.
I'm doing the legacy thing, man. You know.
Oh gosh,
There you
don't
go.
be that. Yeah, then it's like examiner.com. There's too many other things. Yeah,
All right. So you wear many hats
I do.
in your film criticism journey, and that's awesome because I'm going to need some help with today's film. We are talking about a classic, a film that is held in high esteem. I mean, it's so popular that
Hmm.
in the Phil Collins music video for "I Wish It Would Rain Down," they actually spoof this, where Phil Collins stands in for Humphrey Bogart's Sam Spade. We're talking, of course, about the Maltese Falcon, which Warner Brothers just put out on this crazy, like, stunning 4K release, and it's got a
Yeah.
lot of extras and things on it. So they put out a bunch of prestige titles lately, and this is certainly one of them. And I was happy to check this off of my bucket list. It's a blind spot for me. I'd heard about it.
All
I'm
right.
not that familiar with Bogart. I know we talked about Casablanca
Hmm.
recently, so this was a big thrill for me. Um, I wish I could say that I was as thrilled after the movie was over. So I'm going to need your
Okay.
help,
Sure.
Sensei. Guide me through this movie, and
Oh,
what
all
did I
right.
miss? First of
Yeah.
all, what's your history with the Maltese Falcon? And well,
Sure.
first of all, before that, welcome. How
Yes.
you
No,
doing?
always great to be here. Yeah, thank you. No, thanks for having me as well. And I have no problem being a sensei and massage therapist or whatever is needed to get you off the couch and be okay with this movie. I don't know how hard I can sell it, but I'll try.
All right.
You
Um,
know, my history with it is much like Casablanca. My college television station at St. Joseph's College, Rensselaer, Indiana. Rest in peace. The closed school has been gone for 7 years. After 110 or something of history, they did like a movie channel. Like it was very bare bones. Like the TV class and radio class, like the comm majors set up kind of these rotating movies where the same two movies kind of went all day long in loops where you watch one, you watch the other, and there's like two movies a day, and it was on whatever close, because it's the '90s, so like thank goodness there was like real television. So, whoever was programming that, likely a professor and not a kid, would put like the Maltese Falcon and then like Die Hard together, and I don't know why, but you'd watch one or the other, and it was I caught it like, all right, I'll give this movie a try. Same thing, never heard of it, stuff like that. I didn't have a lot of film exposure with it as a kid or anything, where I didn't have like an old grandparent that said, hey, you got to watch these movies of this guy Bogey. No one really pulled me aside. So I saw that, and that was probably when I said it on the Casablanca show. That was probably my first Humphrey Bogart was the Maltese Falcon first, and in doing so, that kind of led to that deep dive that turned me into a Casablanca man after that. College was also being a podunk country road kid that I was. College was the first time I ever had cable television. Like it was as a Chicagoan suburban kid, 2579 1132 26 and 50, and that was all I had for television, unless I spoke Spanish and I got 44 and 66. So going to college in the late 90s, and you get like TNT and Turner Classic Movies and stuff like that, like just built into whatever comes pipes in through campus. The deep dives into films were easy to do. In my second year of school, I got a job at the local video store, being that guy, and that was able to make more deep dives. Where like now you're going on the down the shelf and like trying to find this, trying to find that, and so Maltese Falcon was one of those that was probably my Humphrey Bogart rookie card. And it's not Casablanca for me, but it has stayed in esteem where like, ooh, I get it, or oh, I understand why it's selected as this, and but I but I admit you're not the first person I've met who's told me, hey, what's the story here? So tell me more your story about how you're stepping into this, and I'll see if I can again massage the shoulders.
Let me ask you this question.
Yeah.
Literally, what's the story here? I mean,
Uh,
I
um,
it's
private eye gets mixed up in maybe to be a patsy into a scheme for archaeological treasure hunt. That's kind of among well-to-do people, who just yeah, this is also one of those Hollywood's original MacGuffins is you have this just supposedly jewel encrusted falcon from the 16th century, and that's supposed to be your thing to go get and do. And how can a detective kind of wade his way through that at the same time as whatever, play both sides, come out ahead, make a little bit of money? Is there still mythology, in play of whatever this thing is, and does it bring bad luck to all the people who come near it? So it's this weird mashup when you think about it of a gumshoe thing, and then I don't want to say national treasure, but it kind of thinks it wants to be that. So
It's, I thought about this during one scene of the movie, but then when you mentioned the idea of the sort of mysticism, is it a cursed object, this Maltese
yeah,
falcon, which is it's a foot tall statue that has
yeah,
been encrusted. It was made of gold and then encrusted with, rare jewels. And then over the course of its hundreds of years traveling the planet was covered in like black lacquer or something like
yeah,
that to disguise what it
yeah.
is, but it's still
Cheaper prop
recognizable.
department too. Yeah,
Yeah, right. Plus, I think
yeah,
it's such a striking image, when
it
it shows
is.
up on the screen. I don't know how the jewels and everything would have shown up on, in black and white consistently. But it's it's based on a
Yeah,
Dashiell Hammett novel. Did you ever read the book?
it did. I caught up to the book a couple years ago because I was kind of in a big kick on going down like a Dashiell Hammett and like who's the other one? James and Cain kind of deep dive where Double Indemnity, kind of some of those noir roots, and how the novel by Hammett, obviously because of code era movies, goes harder. There's a little more sex and violence, a little bit more rougher tone here and there, a little more suggested this, a little more suggested that, and you can't put that in the movie because plain and obvious, for example, Miss O'Shaughnessy and Sam, of course, have a little role in the hey here and there, or it's suggested. Even the novel doesn't get salacious with it, but same thing with just a little more severity of just I don't want to say language, but just more severity of violence and what they're going for, and what you can show on screen and what you can't in 1941. So, is it the cool part that I noticed between comparing the two is Huston was adamant about just really keeping as much as he could of the dialogue from the novel in the movie, and that does indeed track. It's one of the tightest adaptations I've seen in terms of like an adapted screenplay of like you really are lifting some lines that just hit nail on the head perfect as a movie, whether or not you can kind of inflect them with enough vigor and tone that the novel can do, because it can obviously go darker. That would be more the thing. The closest comp I can give you, like as a modern equivalent, is the novel that Out of Sight is based on, the
Elmore
George
Leonard,
Clooney
yeah.
one, Elmore Leonard. But the George Clooney flick lifts lines perfectly as well, where it's just like it's everything you pictured when you read the novel, and it just zinger after zinger. So, and this
I'm
movie
actually
too, yeah,
Yeah, I'm actually doing a page to screen of that with Cole in I think 2
nice.
months.
Oh,
Yeah, because
perfect.
Out of Sight turns the movie turns 25 this
It
year, which is
does.
crazy. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Um,
If you get the chance to soak up that novel though,
yeah, we're gonna read it and then compare it to the
perfect.
film.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think you'll find a fun comparison. The fun part there is you got to trade Buxom Blonde for Jenny from the Block. So good luck there. Yeah, that's probably the
Well,
one curveball there. But yeah.
I guarantee I will be reading it with Jennifer Lopez in a blonde wig in mind because she was
You'll need
perfect
that.
in
Yeah.
that film.
Oh, I know.
Um,
Yeah.
so
For
that's
this one though.
this one, there is just it's one of those things that I don't know if it's because I'm immersed in this generation where we all have the attention span of a gnat. But
Okay.
I had to cast myself back to someone watching this in a theater in 1941. Right off the bat, they start with the very rapid fire. It's not even rat-a-tat dialogue where it's kind of snappy necessarily,
Sure.
but it's a huge amount of exposition. If you're not paying attention from the jump, you're like,
Right.
wait a second. In the course of the last 3 sentences, they mentioned like 45 characters and their relationship to each other. And I'm lost, but the movie isn't going to handhold me. It's just
Right.
going to introduce more ideas and situations. And at a certain point, particularly at the end where Bogey, playing Sam Spade, the iconic
Yeah.
private eye, has Ms. O'Shaughnessy, I think, by the shoulders. And he's like, basically explaining to her how he knows that she's full of crap and she's been leading him on the whole time, and she has her own interest in this shady underworld stuff. I'm like, okay, finally, we're gonna get something I'm going to understand from Bogey's mouth.
Right.
And he lets forth, and I'm like, okay, I really
It's
have
a
no
lot.
idea what the hell he's talking about.
And right before that, he and Greenstreet are trying to trade Patsy stories. Like, how can we set this up? What if I'm going to cover up with the cops, you got to tell me what you know. And then Greenstreet exposition dumps everything he knows at the same time that Bogart, before even him, exposition dumped everything he's going to think he can do to swing this deal. So, oh no, the last 15 minutes are a mouthful and an earful at the same time. And no, so you definitely have to kind of you're right. You got to kind of bring your attention span in game, maybe even some screwball, 40 speed training wheels into this a little bit, where they did talk this fast in the movies, and even the audiobook moves this quick. Like, dialogue is very quick in the novel as well. But no, between that and I like the way you said it though, where this is one of those time capsule things where you have to kind of sit there and, because you hear I'm sure you've heard the stories that this is kind of arguably recognized as the first great noir, where this is kind of the first one to do the things we've seen aped 1,000 ways since then, and to try how much can you push the envelope of murder, how much can you push the envelope of shade and character, and like, because Bogart for a long time there probably isn't a hero. I mean, he's got the office and he's meant to kind of be our good guy, but he's not a nice man. And Hollywood would not let that slide for a lot of time there. So how can they bend all the things they can bend and still kind of get away with what they get away with, and then stylistically, create a new way of looking at it that has now since become an art form. So I had the same problem recently. I was the first time, because I'm a whore pussy and you know this. I did a first time watch of Halloween, the Carpenter Halloween, and
Hmm.
I watch it and I'm like, I'm doing what you're doing. Like, this is really boring. I get that there's a stalker and the dude's doing his thing, but I realized how many things I've seen before, thanks to 1,000 things that have done the Halloween stuff since. But I had to kind of pause my brain about halfway through and go, wait a minute. Picture this as if this is the first time you see these tropes being done, and then it's like, oh, that is inventive. Oh, that is a little something. Wow, that they did that there. And I tried to do that even with Maltese Falcon, where like shade, shadow, low angles. I mean, I know Citizen Kane's the same year in terms of the Oscar contention, the low angles and the shade and the shadow, where Wells goes for his own level of noir without the murder and the mystery. But this movie trying to do what it does to do Shades of Grey is appreciable, but it takes, yeah, kind of that microwave setting and pause button to be like, all right, I'm going to enter this and I need to look at it like this.
Confession time. I
Yeah.
can't remember, it was 10 years ago or maybe it was more, but yeah, I watched Halloween, which I'd seen numerous times, growing
Mhm.
up, but it was the first time I remember watching it as an adult and
Yeah.
sort of like with a film critic's eye. And I wrote about it, and I haven't gone back to read that review, and I kind of don't want to, because
Mhm.
I kind of took some flack for it, because I'm like, this maybe back in the 70s it was great and
Sure.
innovative, but yeah, I just didn't, I couldn't respond to it.
I couldn't, like, if you asked me to write about it right now, I couldn't do it. I'd be like, it's a guy who's kind of out of the madhouse running around with a knife. That's it.
Yeah, I
Babysitter
mean,
of the way.
there's like, yeah, a lot of that. I think I like the hospital stuff with Loomis and all that kind
Yeah,
of,
that's cool.
setup of the, the eyes of evil or whatever. But
Hmm.
when it comes to the stock and slash stuff, it had helped to set the groundwork for a genre that would get more spectacular and, outrageous and, in some cases more thrilling as the
Yeah.
decades went on. But you still got to appreciate it. And I feel like with Maltese Falcon, yeah, I appreciated it. I wasn't quite prepared for it because um the hold on one second. My phone is ringing. Um, I wasn't quite
It's a
prepared
girl with a
for.
case and a dame. Go. You better answer that phone. You never
No,
know.
better not. This movie taught me
Oh,
a lot of lessons. Never
good
answer the
point.
phone.
Yeah.
Never become a private eye.
Yeah.
But I had always, like, my big, I guess, touch point for noir, kind of in the pop context, was Sin City, because Frank Miller had. I think he
Hmm.
specifically, mentioned that it was a Dashiell Hammett homage.
Totally.
And so it's kind of silly in some of its antagonists, but it's also a very heavy, like, dark book. And I was not
Hmm.
prepared for how kind of humorous the Maltese Falcon was.
Oh yeah.
I was expecting more Bogey in the Casablanca mold, where he's like the damaged, cynical, world-weary private eye. He's kind of that here, but he's
Hello.
also funny. Like he's
He's taking glee in how much he can screw with people, you know.
especially there is I think Wilmer
Yeah,
is
the
the name
henchman
of
guy.
the henchman who I've seen him in a couple of things before, and I want to
Yeah,
say I thought he was in an old Twilight Zone or something. I could be wrong
it's
about that.
possible.
But first of all, he's supposed to be like 20 years old. I'm like,
Yeah,
I
but
know
he's
they
like
looked a little older back in the 40s,
33.
but
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah,
Um,
Bogart's 42 making this movie. So, yeah.
oh
I
wow,
mean, that's 42 because
man,
you're 42, right?
I'm gonna be 46 this summer.
Okay, well, that's right. That's right. I'm the young guy. I'll be 44 this summer, but I look at that movie and go, gosh, I'm older than Bogart doing. Yeah.
Well, war is hell.
Yeah.
But the bit where
Mhm.
he meets the henchman on the street, and the henchman's like, yeah, we're gonna go up to see the big boss, and he's got the classic, got the gun on him and everything, and they're
Mhm.
walking through that hallway of the hotel, and then Bogey just like in one move disarms him, grabs like
Love it.
both guns, and then
Yeah.
takes him in to see his boss.
Yeah. You're gonna
It's
need
just
these back. Yeah.
exactly, and there's these nice little zingers. At one
Mm.
point, like I don't think I've ever seen a poisoning scene more awesome than the one that's in this
This was good.
movie, because
Yeah.
it was the big man, the fat man, I think they were called, or they
Yeah.
referred to him,
Gutman. Hmm.
Gutman, right?
Yeah.
He slips a Mickey into Bogart's drink, and when he's standing up, you really get the feeling that he
Mhm.
realizes he's in trouble, but he's still trying to play it cool the way Sam Spade would, and then he's
Yeah.
just
Let
out.
me get my hat and then down. Yeah. Yeah.
And then Wilmer kicks him like
Oh
right in
yeah.
the head. He wakes up with a giant welt.
Hmm.
It's brutal. I liked everything about this movie except these I think except the central conceit, and maybe I even liked that. It's just people just would not stop talking.
No, and that's true. I mean, and that yeah, I'm there for watching Bogart do his thing. Like, let's see him play up against characters here. You know, a low key femme fatale with Mary Astor's character, and Green Street. That was his film debut. You know, in that big role as Gutman, and he just, and like you said, in those central scenes, not just in the Mickey slip scene, but the other conversation they had before that, where Bogart leaves breaking stuff and stuff like that. Like when you get him rolling in conversation and just the way he whips out dialogue, and he'll do it again in Casablanca a year later. Like that's I like watching Bogart as a character actor. And I know it's gonna sound like the Brad Pitt knock, but like Bogart is a character actor in a movie star's body. I mean, he's just that character is still a tough guy, American tough guy. And obviously there's versions of that all the way through his career. But like this is, like I said, the humor is there, like the playfulness, the smiles when he delivers a few lines, like, "Oh, you're so full of shit," and he knows, and it'll just tell him right to you. His dialogue with the two cops, also just like that's some balls to just push back all the time on law enforcement. Where, yeah, like this is a fun, but you're right, this is a lot of talking, and by the time you get to those last 15 minutes again, and the talking just does not stop. You got to be there for that. Because but if this movie was remade today, we would have a more thrilling taxi cab chase. We'd have a more gruesome, interesting stalking scene before the murders that we see occur. We definitely we'd be betting Miss O'Shaughnessy, and this movie would be 20 minutes longer with more pulp and more pizzazz. But I don't know. There's something cool and tight about this. But going back to your noir point of like appreciating it being the first one, this is definitely this movie walks so other ones can run. Like by the time you do get 4 years from now to Double Indemnity and some of these things that really seep this in, and like turn off the charm and just turn on the darkness, then you get really noir, where like you almost at a point then miss the jovialness that is mixed in thanks to this movie versus everything being grit, dark, and slow. And like I'm happy this movie exists and is an archetype versus what it could be something else, because there's a zillion ways you can do noir that are just flatter than this.
And I don't know if do you know if they have ever remade the Maltese Falcon?
This, in fact, is a remake itself. They made this movie, or the Maltese Falcon was adapted in 1931 on a smaller scale. Obviously, this is big Hollywood studio, and you got a big star with Bogart. This was a kind of up and coming Huston though. Like not a lot of people would work with rookie director Huston or rookie-ish director Huston because I think Charles Raft was supposed to be the Sam Spade part, but Bogart's like, nah, I like this guy Huston, and that turned out pretty well for both of them.
Yeah.
I don't know if this has been remade. I don't think this has been remade since. That's a good question. If you were to do it today, or even, I could see somebody like today. We got cell phones in 1,000 ways you can't cover things you do, but I could see this being done in the '70s with the '70s level of like, well, tits and ass and nudity.
Yeah.
Like
I
Cassavetes would make this movie or something like that. I don't know. Or De Palma probably tried to think he could make this movie. So
Yeah, I don't I would not want to see this remade because for as much as and I
me
think
neither.
maybe my
Or
issue with
period
this
piece only.
no, not even that because
Ooh, yeah.
A, who are you going to get to replace Bogart unless you're going to get someone who's trying to do Bogart but not do
Right.
Bogart and he's an original. Um but it's something that I need to watch this movie again and I feel like now that I know what I'm in for, it's kind of like I think I went
Sure.
back and watched Halloween after I had reviewed it 10 years ago and I kind of had reset my bar, so I'm like it's still not scary. I think I'm too familiar with it, but I can
Sure.
definitely appreciate it more. And I feel like that might be the case with Maltese Falcon. To your point about not having cell phones, the if help me if I'm remembering this correctly, but at the end, they get the Falcon, and this was I immediately thought of the Usual Suspects because I thought that
Hmm.
was kind of a good successor. Bryan Singer's movie was a great successor to films like this.
I agree.
Um, the bit where there's a boat that's on fire.
Yeah.
There have been, the bad guys were on the boat and it ended up on fire. That's straight up Usual Suspects. And the captain
Totally.
of that boat shows up at Sam Spade's office.
Hmm.
Secretary opens the door and he falls in dead, holding the bird wrapped
Oh
in
yeah.
newspaper. I'm like, that's totally Usual Suspects.
Oh yeah.
Um, and but what I loved is when they finally all the players are in that suite and they unwrap the bird and they're trying to get through the lacquer and they
Hmm.
realize that it's all there are no jewels underneath. There's no gold. So they've been killing themselves trying to find this artifact. They think they've got it, but it's a fake. And they
Yeah.
immediately start launching into plans like, well, we can go to Zimbabwe or wherever
Istanbul.
the hell they
Yeah.
were.
Yeah.
Istanbul, yeah.
Uh-huh.
And then Sam's like, well, hold on a sec. um, but what I loved is it's a fake. So
Hmm.
does the real Maltese Falcon even look like that? Does anybody know what it really looks like? I don't know if there's like
Yeah.
photographs of it or drawings.
Yeah. Like
Does
I
that
feel like,
travel the world?
yeah, like you said, if this was modern, internet research would save us a whole lot of chasing in this movie, which is no fun. So the fun of this is the chase. If you do watch this movie again, I think the character I would have you pay attention to. I mean, one, it's hard to take your eyes off Bogart and take your ears off Bogart with all the great dialogue. Watch Mary Astor. Watch the way, like now that you know where she's coming from and all the different hops and hoops she did to lie. Watch those lies as she makes them in round two. I think you'll get a richer. I think you'll see more of like because you'll I know you'll be watching Bogart. Now watch Mary and how Bogart can either read it or miss it at the time in which he reads it or misses it. So most of the time he spot on has her the whole time. But
Well,
yeah,
and the thing about her performance, I don't know if this is well, it's got to be in the direction and the acting because I don't think you can
true.
really pick it up from a book because it feels like it's a lot of actorly choices.
Yeah.
But what I liked is in movies that we've seen like this, things are trying to do the noir thing. You've got the femme fatale or the
Mhm.
innocent who turns out to not be so innocent. Much like, Bond villains, there's usually that coming out party where they're like, yeah, weeping and they're like, and I have you now,
Yeah, yeah.
that kind of thing. She doesn't really do
No,
that. You get the
she's
feeling
that
that
broken.
she's broken. You get the feeling that she kind of had feelings for Sam at some level, even if she was trying to use those feelings to like, you're not really gonna turn me in. What about what we had? And he's like, we
Right.
never really had anything, darling.
Right, sweetie.
Um,
Yeah.
but she doesn't chew the scenery.
Oh.
She comes out just a bit, so you can see how you use the word broken. I think that's perfect. She's a
Hmm.
survivor. She wants to get this thing because she thinks it's gonna help her, have a better life. It's not like she's trying to take over the world or something. She's not a lifelong hardcore
Yeah.
criminal. That's not the sense I got.
No, and I think that's why I kind of have you like watch her again because like and I'm not trying to say watch her again with like today's Me Too female agency lens, but just the idea of like you said, how would this character be written and how would that come out? Because you're right, in other noir movies, this would be a sex pot dial to 12. You're right, a coming out party, real nefarious, obvious from the start that she's not who she says she is. Whereas I think Astor plays this beautifully in terms of like you buy it for a good little while, like, wait, how much this can't really be a lie. Is she really still lying? Like she does really well from a character standpoint of like presenting what she can be or isn't. And yeah, I really appreciate her work. She won the Oscar this particular year for a different movie. Although she was just as great in this one. She won the Oscar for oh, what was it? I got it written down here. The Great Lie. But she was nominated and won for that movie and not this. This movie was only nominated for 3 Oscars. It was in the Best Picture field. This was early in the Oscars where you did the 10 nominees like they went back to recently. But this Murderers Row was it was this, Citizen Kane, Sergeant York, and Hitchcock's Suspicion, and they all lost to How Green Was My Valley in the 14th Academy Award. So Bogart was not nominated this year for Best Actor. Gary Cooper ended up winning for Sergeant York. Wells is in that category for Kane. Greenstreet in his debut performance was up for Supporting Actor. Did not win. I think it was somebody from How Green Is My Valley. And then it lost Best Adapted Screenplay to Here Comes Mr. Jordan, which is the OG story of Heaven Can Wait, which has been done 16 different ways in Hollywood. So, but yeah, I would have. But that category also, for some reason, had 8 to 10 nominees. So Maltese Falcon was up against a lot. I would have nominated it for cinematography because of the inventiveness of doing the angles and the shadows and like the beginning of noir. But that's probably one of those nominees where you didn't know how good it was then, but we all think about how good it is now. Because this was like a universal monster movie 30s kind of cinematographer doing kind of slumming it to work with Huston. And I think the idea of like make these people look like monsters without, of course, not them being monsters shows because again, the dark, the shade, the light. So it's good stuff.
I mean, yeah, looking at Green Street, right?
Yeah.
I was watching him, and it's almost like one of those movies where I think I would have benefited if I could watch it. Sounds terrible without the dialogue track, but keeping like the score and definitely watching it because the way he towers over everybody else. I mean, he's a large man, but he reminded me like if his character had just been a few degrees meaner. I was watching Wilson Fisk as the Kingpin, like the perfect cinematic representation of him. I was like, I want to see this guy, transported through, AI or special effects today and have him go up against Matt Murdock.
If I remember correctly, and you can check some Stan Lee history, there's a good chance Green Street was indeed a reference point for Lee creating the character. I would not be surprised. In fact, that history's ringing a bell in my head where that's a David Foley question, but he would know. But no, that's perfect. And if you notice when they shoot Green Street, they love to go low and get that full belly to like fill the frame down here where his head's up here, but then it's just like a triangle to just belly. Whereas they shoot Bogart slide profile enough to make him still look slim and slender and sleek, but they don't hide Green Street size whatsoever, and it's super effective.
I'm not trying to be mean, but it almost seems like impossible that he would have those proportions. I mean, he's a really large guy, but you don't, and maybe it's just the suit and like the fine tailoring or whatever. It doesn't seem like that. It just seems like like the personification of intimidation. like much like the Kingpin, if he wanted to, he could squash you with his words, if not his fists.
Well, if he was henchmanless and can do his own leg breaking, he'd be super intimidating. I think he's intimidating enough, but that extra level would be fun to see. Yeah.
We haven't talked about Peter Lorre at all.
Oh, as usual, he's kind of the stick that stirs the drink a little bit. Like I think you need that. If Green Street's going to be this heavy, literally and figuratively, you kind of need that I don't know, that feigned that feign, I don't want to say feigned violence, but you need that sniveling lesser. Who's the guy in the Mummy because you've got Imhotep, and then who's the guy we always remember because he's the character we all love to hate. We're so happy when the scares at the end of the movie.
Oh, you're talking about the Brendan Fraser Mummy?
Yeah.
Those weren't my bag. I couldn't tell you.
Okay, but like, there's always that one sniveling sidekick character, normally a bad guy, who you're just waiting for them to get theirs, because you just don't like him. They make him, they portray him badly. He looks badly. There's nothing you like about him. And then yeah, Peter Lorre is that shifty-eyed guy where you there's no way he's ever romantically in the movie, because you just look at him and go, you have a face for evil, and it works. But then he turns on the voice, and he turns on that I think I can coax you with my level of snake oil charm, which normally never works, but he tries, and it's fun to watch him try. Where it's yeah, because like the first scene where he tries to stick up Bogart in the office, and Bogart kind of slaps the gun out of his hand, and then shakes him down and frisks him on the couch and stuff like that. But then when they kind of have their little moment where he comes to and they converse again and like try to go their separate ways, and he tries to stick him up again, I'm like, only Peter Lorre can pull that off. And anyone else would ham that up for comic relief. Like that'd be Keegan Michael Key today, overdoing it. You know what I mean?
Well, he's, what I love the tag of that scene is after they're done their business, and I can't remember if Laurie's character asks for his gun back or if Bogey just gives it to him.
Yeah, he asks for it back. Yeah.
He asks for it back, and then he immediately like takes it, and then he sticks him up again, and then he's like, "May I search your office?" And he's like, "Sure." And then it cuts.
And Bogart just laughs like, "I guess so. We know how this is gonna end." Yeah, all too fun.
But it's
right.
It's
but there's that humor again. Amazing.
It is humor, but it's also, it kind of tells something about these characters. Bogart, he feels so calm around this guy because he feels like he could take that. I feel like he feels that even if Peter Lorre was across the room pointing the gun at him, he could still take it out of his hands.
Probably.
Somehow.
Yeah.
He could make that happen.
Have you who's a good comp? Like this is a cool as a cucumber character. Like I mean, it's other than the slipped Mickey, and even like you said, even with the slipped Mickey, he's trying to play cool, put the hat on and walk out the door, button a suit if I got to him on my way up. I'm trying to think of a character who is just that, even in the face of threat, that cool. Probably Han Solo. Like we're going there, right?
I was gonna say Indiana Jones.
Yeah,
it's the young Harrison Ford thing. It's the talking about slipping the Mickey. It's the opening of Temple of Doom, where he's like antidote. He thinks he's got it over on the other person, but then he's being poisoned and he's like thrashing around because he's trying not to pass out. I mean, again, you can see the influence of this movie, whether or not it was this film or other films like it or novels like it.
Sure.
They got into the heads of the next generation of directors who wanted to pay homage to it. And I think up to a certain point of what I know, it was kind of successful. But then you get into, again, more modern sensibilities where they try and add to it, like, oh, it's got to be sexier, it's got to be more violent. Like, it doesn't really.
No.
I mean, my only gripe about this is that I think what it was is I was during some of these speeches where they're talking about things that have happened off screen, things that we were not privy to, and characters that we weren't privy to.
Right.
They're describing whole scenes and action bits. I'm like, show it. I mean, I feel like if I were reading this in a novel and I was reading Bogey or Sam Spade giving a speech to someone about something that happened, I would have been going from that office into the story he was telling and then back out of the office. Whereas here, I'm just like, who are you talking about? This sounds really complicated. I didn't turn this movie on to watch a book.
Right. And that's probably where 1941's sophistication can't take us. Like no, this would be an editing thing that Nolan would do. Like he would turn the screws of time and he would show us every little possible thing in the whole wide world. Or a Tarantino would of course pause in a really grandiose way and go, 3 days ago, and then take us into some ridiculous scene at the haberdashery place with in Hateful Eight. There's strength in both, because in a way this is a pretty tight 100-minute film, I think, where you're in, you're out. There's obviously a ton of exposition dumped on you, but I'm with you. A richer experience with maybe more sophistication of filmmaking and editing. You do go back and pop in here, show a little establishing shot of this here, or like even if you saw like that the La Palma boat before the newspaper headline, like just even little steps like that. Maybe I think that's probably where a person in that era is probably Hitchcock could do that. Like Hitchcock could layer more than this. Hitchcock would probably do the things we're talking about, though. He'd probably kink it up a little bit and call for those censors a little harder than Huston did. But I'm with you. Like you're right. There's room to show, not tell. That's probably a novel versus a movie. Like because the novel is a quick read, but at the same time you're not going to fit even a 6-hour audiobook into a 2-hour movie. So yeah.
Well, knowing what you've told me about the book, I really want to go out and read that. Maybe I'll have
They're
to.
easy reads, you know.
I think
Yeah,
I think we'll have to do
stuff.
this the next time I watch this movie. I'm going to do
Mhm.
my own page to screen. I want to read the book and then watch the film, because it happens sometimes with classic movies. If it doesn't grab me right off the bat, because there's some films
That's
I
fair.
watch for the first time, like I'm on your wavelength, I'm going with you, and there's others
Mhm.
where I need to come back to it, and once I know the destination, I can appreciate taking the
Yeah.
journey again
Yeah.
a bit more.
No, I think, let me double check here quick. Because I think this book is available like right on the CPD library or CPL library, like on Hoopla. Are you a Hoopla man with your library card?
Yes, I am. Although I only use it to rent movies.
I don't blame you there either, because they have just nice things that way. I'll look that up while we go. But no, historically, like the movie is still kind of, the reverence is, it's one of the first 25 selected for National Registry in 1989. It's number 23 all time in the AFI list, and even when they did the 10-year one, it only dropped to 31 in 2007. It's number 26 in thrills. It's number 14 in quotes. It's number 6 in mystery. And yeah, but it's one of those where we are watching something that walks before something else can run, because yeah, Usual Suspects and everything Hitchcock and De Palma think they can do, and all the noir since then starts in places like this. And even me as a Casablanca man, like watching Green Street here and realizing a year later he would kind of play that some semi heavy again, but obviously way more here than in Casablanca. But then for Bogart, like establishing him as the glee taking anti-hero, and then to get to see him get the girl a year later, is, I can only imagine, like I said, sitting, like you said, sitting in those movie theaters in 41 going, oh, what's this new Bogart movie? I can't wait. And then a year later they'll go, oh, let's watch the new Bogart movie. Whoa, look at him go. Like, I think they'd be amazed by all that.
It's such a thing to think about. You've got Citizen Kane and Maltese Falcon in the same year. The next year you've got Casablanca. All while there's a world war going on.
Amazing. Yeah, I mean, they shot this in like 5 weeks. Super meticulously planned, everything storyboarded, everything rehearsed. They wanted to just save money on the they wanted to save money everywhere they could on just production time. So it was like from early June to early July, and they were done.
Wow.
Previewed it in September, released it the month after that. It's super fast. Today you couldn't get away with that. Yeah,
No.
on Hoopla, the audiobook for Dashiell Hammett's Maltese Falcon, 7-hour, 52-minute audiobook. If you're an audiobook man,
I'm not, mostly because of the reasons we're talking about with this film, because I'm so distracted. I find that when I'm working, I used to be able to listen to music or podcasts. Now I'm like, oh God, I have to rewind 50 times just to catch up on one sentence, because I'm getting old. But anyway, this conversation is not getting old, but I do need to bring it to a close.
Sure.
Was that a transition? No.
It counts. It is now.
Yeah. But Matt, thank you for hanging out and talking about Maltese Falcon with me. Again, it's a movie that I appreciate more than I love, but I think that in time I could learn to love it. And
I think so.
Yeah.
In Warner Brothers, we're getting that century anniversary birthday stuff this year, where, like you said, that beautiful 4K is worth picking up if you're a Bogart fan like I am. Did you also get Cool Hand Luke and Rebel Without a Cause in that stack too?
I did, and if you've got time, we should talk about those as well.
I'm in. You name the time, and I'm
not
there.
Right now, but
no, I got to go pick up some kids from school. But yes,
hopefully your own. Sorry,
my own. Maybe a couple more. We'll see. I don't
know. No,
yeah.
Check the news, everybody. No, Don Shanahan, thank you again. We'll talk soon about some other classic films, and I was gonna say, here's looking at you, kid. That's not even from this movie, but
this what we have to say here is, you and me right now, this is the stuff dreams are made of.
I immediately thought of Carly Simon. Anyway,
well, there we go. See, quotes borrowed all over the place.
And take it easy.
Take it easy.
Bye.